There are many interesting things in this world. Some we know about, others we have yet to study, and some we are not meant to know. Today, I, like an alchemist, would like to share with you some secrets that I have witnessed over the past 50 years, as well as an intriguing story that had fateful consequences for me. It was long ago, 520 years to be exact. I was just an ordinary boy who, like everyone else, loved to go swimming in the river, eat berries from the meadows, and play hide and seek. Outwardly, I seemed normal, but there was something different about me. I was not afraid of witches or sorcerers, and in fact, I actively sought them out. I yearned to encounter forest spirits and even household spirits, and I was always drawn to the unusual and the extraordinary, while my parents, friends, and the other villagers were terrified of all things magical and mystical. I, on the other hand, was determined to seek it out. It is so foolish to fear what we do not know. Take forest spirits and household sprites, for example. We could learn so much from them, yet instead we try to avoid them or destroy them at the first opportunity. It seems to be human nature to destroy anything that poses even the slightest threat. But at the time I didn't know that, and so I concluded that I needed to get to know the locale sorcerer who lived in our village. I was still young, but I was fairly clever, and before I went to him, I warned everyone where I was going. The panic and hysteria was simply grand, and as you might guess, they wouldn't let me go anywhere. About 2 weeks later, I was finally able to make contact with the sorcerer. It was terrifying. At first, he simply chased me away and threatened to eat me if I didn't leave. But I was stubborn and kept pleading for him to teach me his tricks. I didn't understand at first, but then I realized why the sorcerer agreed to take on such a young apprentice. It was simple and brilliant. It was his goal. At that time, the sorcerer believed that my mind was not yet tainted by the typical nonsense about wanting more money, 3 estates, and 5 carriages. For me, at that point, those things didn't matter at all. I didn't care if I was dressed in expensive clothes or cheap ones. After all, they were just clothes, right? So the sorcerer decided it made sense to teach me everything he knew, to pass on his purpose, and if he had to die, he wouldn't have to search for a successor. Overall, it was a win-win situation, and so began my career as an alchemist. At first, I would wander the forest, get to know the supernatural creatures, and do dirty deeds, all just to gain even more power. But my teacher kept me on a tight leash and didn't allow me to indiscriminately crush people, saying it was unwise. And so, in my drive to become even more powerful, I delved into such dark realms of magic that even my teacher said the use of such knowledge could lead to terrible consequences. But there was nothing particularly special about it. Raising the dead in mass, dragging demons from the underworld into the world of the living, resurrection, and other such minor interesting things. At that time, I was interested in just one branch, that which dealt with resurrection and life extension. But the supposedly very dangerous science of necromancy only offered the ability to raise the dead, not to attain eternal life, and that wasn't an option that interested me. And that's when I learned about the science of alchemy. Alchemy is a mixture of occult sciences, human sacrifices, and piles of corpses, all of it just to never die and learn how to turn lead into gold. How foolish. Why turn lead into gold if you'll never die? You'll have an abundance of free time. What are you going to do with your personal life if, in essence, there's no point in living anymore? And so I decided, why become the most powerful mage or alchemist and after gaining experience and knowledge, simply choose to die? At that time, it seemed to me a very absurd conclusion to the story of my life. And this is a very short account of my life up to the age of 25, after which I moved on to the realm of alchemy. I still vividly remember that first meeting with the other alchemists. I had long sought to meet these people, and then I was invited to a mansion where many other alchemists gathered, all showing off their successes and achievements. I expected a respectable community and dressed accordingly, but it was in vain. A large country mansion, about 50 people inside, all strutting back and forth between the tables, occasionally glancing at the stage where madness was taking place. Most of the alchemists suffered from a very terrible addiction. They were addicted to opium. And as you can imagine, people with addled brains couldn't come up with anything worthwhile. They just did what others had done before them, just in a different way. I stayed there for a long time, waiting for them to finally show something worth seeing, but they showed nothing of value. Most people didn't care. That evening I saw only a few things: pointless cruelty, stupidity, and addiction. So I took a few books from the mansion with me and disappeared from public life for almost 70 years. All those years I methodically and diligently studied alchemy, with my otherworldly helpers bringing me books and new test subjects. And after many years, I found what many had struggled with and failed to achieve. I managed to create the Philosopher's Stone. For those who may not know, I'll explain what it's for. It turns ordinary metal into gold, and if taken internally in small amounts, it rejuvenates the body and cures all diseases. When I made it, I read many different books, and you know what I'll tell you. Those who wanted to know how this stone is made have already made it long ago, but no one will ever show it to others. The reason is not greed, but simply that it cannot be done. You cannot give eternal youth and eternal life to everyone. Can you imagine what would happen if people stopped dying? And there are only a handful of true alchemists, maybe 4 dozen at most, and that number of people is unlikely to have any significant impact on the overall situation. And after creating this stone, I was overcome with a sense of melancholy. I had devoted so many years to simply doing nothing. There was no point in going anywhere or striving for anything. I just wanted to lie down and rest until the end of time. The years allotted to me had run out, and now I lived beyond the norm, and this did not bode well for my mental health. You can live with a sick body, but with a sick mind, that's difficult. And so, to keep from completely losing my mind, I decided to move to a large city and live there like everyone else, get a job, go shopping, and take care of other everyday matters. And that's what I did. At first it was strange. The people around me spoke and dressed strangely, and there were so many unfamiliar objects. The years spent in seclusion deep in the forest had deprived me of understanding what was happening around me, and a lot of interesting things were happening. For a very long time I lived like everyone else, changing apartments every 10 years so no one would ask why I wasn't aging, and ask me uncomfortable questions. I continued to attend Sabbaths where I received instructions, but then came the realization that I hated people, greedy, arrogant, cunning, driven by just a few goals, to eat and buy something. This thought became obsessive. I couldn't live peacefully thinking about it. And then I went from words to action. I found my purpose. I decided to become the one who would cleanse the world of people, who would restore order and force people to respect each other. And what brings people together the most? That's right, disasters. The more serious and dangerous the disaster, the more united people work together. And I set about creating such a problem. I took ordinary black mold that grows from dampness and modified it a bit. Now this mold lives in the lungs, and it is very difficult to get rid of it, and it is devilishly contagious. When I made this mold, there was little left to do. Find and throw the jar with it into the well so that people would drink the spores. But the jar fell and broke in my country house, and only I got infected. I was hoping for the Philosopher's Stone, but the mold was killing me faster than it could heal me. And here I am, sitting on the floor, writing this story briefly on a piece of paper, and feeling the fuzzy mold growing from my lungs into my throat, and how it is slowly eating me away. Whoever finds my house will receive my gift in the form of the Philosopher's Stone, and a curse in the form of black mold. But that's a secret.